Thank you all. So today I'll be giving you a brief idea regarding the subject, that is software engineering. Um, what are the basic things, the life cycle models, uh, the testing methodologies. So all this will be going through the evolution of software engineering. All this we will be going through. So just a sec. So, as you all know, so the computer was being used for the commercial purpose, I think, over more than last 70 years. So at the initial stage, the computers were very slow and they lacked that sophistication. So the computer power and the sophistication of computer, this have all increased over the time, and also the price were reduced. The improvement you can see in their speed and reduction in the cost, this was due to the several technological breakthrough which have occurred through different intervals. So we can say that the more powerful the computer is, the more sophisticated program it can run. Right? Now, coming on to the term that is your software. Now, with every aspect you can say of improvement in the computer, so the software engineers, they were tasked to solve some larger and some more complex, you can say, the programs. Even that has to be cost effective in several ways. So for this, the software engineering, this evolved. So this started with the knowledge that forms the basic foundation of, you can say, the software engineering principles. Now, coming on to the first point, that what is a software engineering? So we can say that software engineering is mm, is a discipline that discusses the systematic and cost-effective software development approaches, right? Or in the other words, we can say software engineering, it is basically an engineering approach to develop a software. Now, if we are taking an analogy like might be what is exactly an engineering approach to develop a software. If we take a real life example, then you can say, suppose a petty contractor has been given to build a small house for you, right? So these petty contractors are, you can say, not really the experts in the house building. They mainly carry out some minor works and some simple minor repair work, or might construct some small buildings or boundary walls. So the knowledge of building a complete house is quite limited from them. So there might arise some cases like he might not be knowing the optimal proportion of cement and sand mix, even for the structural strength. So what will happen? You'll not be getting a perfect house. So here, what he will use is the systematic collection of the past experience. Like here for all this, the techniques, what techniques has been used in the previous projects he or she have undertaken, the different methodologies, and the guidelines for that. What are the basic guidelines for that? Now, so next is your the engineering practices. What are this engineering practices? So from the building construction analogy, there we can find out several fundamental similarities between your software engineering and other engineering approaches. We might draw it from civil engineering. So first is the heavy use of past experience. So this past experience are systematically arranged, and the theoretical basis for them are, you can say, also provided. So when we are getting no reasonable theoretical justification, so the past experience, they are basically adopted as the thumb rules. When we are designing a system, several conflicting goals might have to be optimized. So in such situation, there may not be unique solution, and we can adopt several alternative solutions, or several alternative solutions can be proposed. So when we are selecting some appropriate solution, so various trade-offs have to be considered before arriving at the final decision. So for that, several iterations and several backtracking might have to be performed. Next is the last one is a pragmatic approach to cost effectiveness is basically adopted, and over there the economics concerns are also addressed. Now moving on to your next topic, that is your this is a graph which is showing the technological development pattern. So here you can see the evolution of your software engineering from an art to an engineering discipline, right? So this software engineering principle, they basically have evolved over last, you can say, 70 years. With the contribution of several researchers, software professionals. So here you can see in this graph, the early programmers, they used an exploratory style. So what is this exploratory style? So in exploratory programming style, every programmer, they evolve their own software development techniques, and these techniques are basically guided by their own intuition or experiences, dreams, fantasies. So this exploratory style is basically a style of writing a program for someone own, or you can say this is a style which is adapted by some persons who are not knowing the software engineering principles. So here we can consider, in this graph, we can consider the software, the exploratory programming development style, this as the art. Since we are, as we all know, the art is mostly guided by one's own intuition. Now, here, after that, we can see a change from this art form to the craft form. So, and after that, we can see the emerging of an engineering discipline. So here you can see that the growth pattern is quite different from the other engineering discipline, right? So even irrespective of the area that has been involved, so the evolution of technology, this followed, you can say, quite this strictly similar pattern. So if I take an example, suppose, so if I take some few many years back, so only some people were knowing the iron making process. So those who were knowing it, they kept it or closely guard this secret. So this knowledge, this esoteric knowledge, uh, used to get transferred from generation to generation, and that as our family secret. So then slowly what happens, the technology that is being graduated from art to craft form. So there the tradesmen shared their knowledge with their, you can say, the students, and this knowledge pool, this continue to grow. So after that, the systematic organization or the use of this knowledge and incorporation of some scientific basis, this has led to some technologies. So here you can see with that example how a technology that was previously in the art form and how it gradually moved on to the technology or the engineering. Now, we have discussed about this exploratory style. So, this exploratory style where a programmer's hims or a person is using his own whims or fantasies for developing a program. So, this was the program style, is also called as the build or this fixed style. So, in this big or fixed style, what happens? A program is developed which might not be understood by the several other persons. So anyone could just tell me what is the difference between a program and a software? Could anyone answer what is the difference between a program and a software?
So, ma'am, a program is a ma'am, a software is a collection of programs, many programs.
Is it? That's the only difference. See, if I say the main difference, so you are writing a program that is for your own use. But when you are developing a software that is might be used by some several other persons, right? So program is basically developed for your own fancies. But when you are developing a software that is for a general use, so here certain points like the documentation and several other aspects need to be considered such that it is understandable by some other also. So this GUI, this is basically a program which is basically called the dirty program, as it is developed according, no guidelines are followed, and this is developed according to one's own intuition. So here in this evolutionary style, several imperfections are being noticed and they are being fixed.
Ma'am,
Yes.
can we call a program a software if it is production ready or if it's not yet produced?
See,
Or
if you are developing a software, if I am saying a software, that means it's a ready one. So
Okay.
program we are writing and software, that means we are saying it as the developed one. Any other queries? I think someone has written something. Software are mainly dependent on operating system. Program are mainly dependent on compiler. Not this is one of the points. So software, we are having two categories of software. One that is you can say the system software and the application software. So the application software run on the platform of some OS or something, and the system software we are having like your the Windows, the Mac, all this are that basically creates an interface between your hardware and this software. Sorry, that basically allow you to interact with the computer system. This is the system software. So if I say yes, software are dependent on the operating system, but for the program also, if you are using a editor, might suppose I am saying all of you are familiar with C.
Yes, ma'am.
Yes,
So
ma'am.
if you are saying a C, so the you are writing a C program in a software that is your Turbo C, right? What do you have
Yes, ma'am.
used? The software? What the software you have used for C programs?
Ma'am, we have used Turbo C mainly, and many of them have used like VS Code and other
Code blocks.
compilers,
Ma'am,
DevC,
Dev C++.
code blocks.
Dev C++, code blocks. Code blocks, I think it's online software. Anyways, let's take the
No, ma'am, it
example.
is
No,
available
ma'am,
in
we can
offline.
download and use it.
Okay,
Ma'am,
you
it
can
is available
download
in
it.
offline. You can
Okay.
download and use it. Yes, sir.
I'm here with this code blocks. So mainly we use, suppose you are using Turbo C. So yes, GNCC. So GNU, GCC, this is basically for the Linux platform, text editor. So here, if you are saying, if let's take the example of your Turbo C. So if you're using Turbo C, it is running on the Windows platform, right? All of you have used it in the Windows platform.
Yes, ma'am.
But
Yes, ma'am.
so this is the Windows platform, the operating system, and this is the software we have installed is your Turbo C, and the editor we are opening, and there we are writing the program, right?
Yes, ma'am.
So can I distinguish between the software and the program? And you were saying that this OS dependent, yes, Turbo C you are running in your Windows platform, but you can't run it in the Linux platform or Android platform, if I say, or might be several other platforms. So software compatibility is definitely an issue. So the Turbo C you're using, that is the software, and the program you are writing over there in the editor, right? Same case for each and every software. So am I clear to some extent?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so let's proceed. So next question arises, why we will be adapting the software engineering approaches. So here the first thing is, the skills that we could here by reading the software engineering principles, we could have gathered the skills that would be requiring for developing, you can say, the larger programs. So here the most important skill that we will be acquiring is for developing the large programs. As you all, as we have discussed about, you can say, the exploratory program development. So this is the style which comes naturally to everybody. So, but this style, this exploratory style is suitable only for the development of small programs. So here the exploratory development approach that breakdowns when the size of program basically increases, right? So here, so as the size of the program that increases, so there the complexity and the difficulty level also grows exponentially. So this ad hoc approach, we are basically terming it as the exploratory approach. So this approach is not at all suitable when we are using or when you are developing a software, a large or a complex software, you can say. Now, so if you have read the software engineering principles, you would be able to solve the complex the problems. So here a large projects, this can be break into, or a large software, we can break it up into some small modules and we can develop it quite easily. So the smaller parts would be quite easily manageable if I compared on to the entire software. Even the software engineering, this subjects will lead you to know about the specification, design, the UI development, testing, and the project management. All these terms we will be discussing later on in the later on slides. So even reading through this or knowing about the software engineering, So a programmer will have the higher productivity, and he or she can develop some better quality programs. Next, software crisis. So what is the software crisis? And briefly, we will discuss among them. So here the software crisis, that means what is the software crisis? So when you can see software products, these are quite expensive as compared to your hardware. So there are some problems which the customers are facing. So like the software products are, you can say, difficult to alter, debug. These are quite enhancing is a bit difficult. They are delivered late. They frequently clash. So all these problems, this lead to the software crisis. So that have increased the trend in software crisis. So here, you can say, so the software cost, you can say, is probably one of the most important symptom of the recent software crisis. So if this trends, this continues, so we'll be getting some, you can say, amazing scenarios like so sometimes you have probably bought some hardware product. So the essential software that run on it, it comes free with it. But if the software evolution doesn't happen, so the hardware prices would become quite insignificant compared to the software prices. So this software crisis has to be handled. So now we were discussing previously like your the difference between the program and the software. So this program, we can say, usually is smaller in size, but the software, this is large in size. The program is used by the person who or she, he or she has basically developed that project, that program. But if I am saying the software, this is being used by a large number of users. Like even it is developed by a single person, whereas the software, this is developed by a team. The programmer, a person is developing here, the user interface is not proper, whereas well-designed user interface is definitely a requirement for your software. Now, the documentation is missing in case of a program, and if I say the software, a proper user manual and documentation is mandatory. Software, this is being developed using some systematic development or some systematic method, but the program, if you are saying, it is developed using the static approach, right? Now, moving on to the next, the types of software projects that has been we are using. One, that is the software products, different products that has been developed and manufactured, and the outsource project that has been given by some other countries. Malware is a program. Malware is a program. Viruses, malware, Trojan, all these are the small programs. Some more questions were there?
Ma'am, but the full form of malware is malicious software.
Malicious software, but these are, we can term it as the small programs. Okay, comes with you. Yeah, these are the some small, it's might be, but these are the small programs, or if we can term it even as a small software that is being installed into your program and that causes several damage. We are having viruses, malware, this is a different category, but all the actions of the malware, virus, worm, Trojan horse, all this are quite similar. that means harming your computer. These are the small programs basically, or rather you can say the small, if you are using this, what you have told, the software is a collection of programs. Might not be the scenario software, might be a single program, or might be a collection of two different programs, or so on. So this malware, this gets installed into your system, and your system causes some harms to your systems. So are you familiar with the term outsource projects? So this TCS, CTS, Wipro, Capgemini, all this are mainly focuses on outsource project. We have seen some of your relatives or friends or family members have going abroad.
Yes, ma'am.
With this companies. So
Yes,
definitely
ma'am.
some outsource projects was theirs, and they have got the on-site to solve that problem or to solve that issues. So through outsource project, the project that has been handed over to the companies by some other companies or other organizations. Now, next is your computer system engineering. So computer system engineering, here you can see, if I go on to here. So here, these are some of the stages of the computer system engineering. So here, there is a occasion, like if let's go. First is the feasibility study. So all this we'll be discussing on your life cycle model. Just now we'll be discussing the life cycle models. So after that, the requirement analysis specification. So the main thing here we would be saying in your computer system engineering. So here you can find out the hardware and software. These two are the two phases that are being developed together. So this hardware simulator in this system engineering, the hardware simulator is used during the software development. And here the integration of this in software engineering, what we do basically is here the integration is done, and the integration is basically of the several modules, or you can say the several functions. But if I am saying computer system engineering, so here hardware and software integration is being done, and the system is then tested, right? Now, this is a DFT. DFT is basically a data flow model. This is the aspect that we use in the software design principle. So here you can find out all these circles. These are called basically the process. Here you can find out the two parallel lines. These are basically your data store. So here, this is a simple process. A simple data store has been, data flow diagram has been given for a car assembly unit. So what is the process? Is the fit engine. So the process, it is getting from the engineering, the engine store, some parts, and some parts from the chassis store. Then the operation is being done, and what is being generated? Chassis is being generated with the engine. Next is your fit doors. Here it is getting the door from the door store, and it is now doing fitting the doors, and the partially assembled car is being generated, which is the input to the next process. Now next process is the fit wheels, which is getting the wheels from the wheel store, and the car is assembled. After that, what happens? The next process is there, car is being painted and it is tested, and finally the car is manufactured. So these are some of the steps. This is how a DFT is drawn. DFT is basically your data flow diagram, which show how the data is flowing from one process to another, or it's basically giving you a pictorial idea about the entire process that has been adapted. Now, here you can see the evolution we have seen of the design techniques. So start evolution. See, all these techniques, this has been evolved since the early days of programming. So the improvements you can see of the software development methodology. So these are about some last 4 or 5 decades. So here you can see it started from the ad hoc, then comes the control flow based design, data structure, data flow based design, and now we are having this object oriented design, right? So every time some new concept and techniques these are emerged for effective software development, and they are being introduced. After that, the life cycle models are being introduced, and several project management techniques, testing techniques, debugging techniques, quality assurance techniques, all this, and now we all for all this we are using the case tools, computer aided software engineering development. So this we are using, and the evolution is going day by day. Now, moving on to your next, this is the software life cycle. So software life cycle. So this is some stages which software passes during its development lifetime. So the first is the feasibility study. Moving on to, so here, next stage, you can see here is the analysis specification, then design, coding, testing, and maintenance. So each of the stages is called basically a life cycle phase. Each of the stage is called a life cycle phase. You can say a software life cycle model is basically a descriptive and diagrammatic representation of the software life cycle. Now, moving on to your next is your life cycle model. So a life cycle model, it you can say represent all the activities that are required to make a software product transit through its different life cycle phases. See, it captures the order in which the activities are to be undertaken. So basically, a life cycle model, it maps the different activities that had to be performed on a software product, might be from inception to its retirement. So here the life cycle model, this you can say maps the basic development activities to phases in some different ways. See, it doesn't matter which life cycle model we are following. So the basic activities are included in all the life cycle model, and this all activities are need to be carried out in different orders in different life cycle models. So here, now moving on to your first life cycle model, that is your classical waterfall model. In classical waterfall model, it is developed, it is classified into some stages. So feasibility study, requirement analysis, specification, design, coding and unit testing, integration and system testing. And the last phase is the maintenance. So before moving on to the waterfall model, so here two things you need to know. One, that is the phase entry and the exit criteria. See, all these are the phases. So the entry and exit criteria need to be known. So here the phase entry criteria is, you can say a phase can begin only when the corresponding phase entry criteria satisfied, and the phase exit criteria is you can come out of that phase only when the exit criteria is satisfied. So here we are having the first phase. This is your feasibility study. So here you can say the feasibility study, it determine whether it would be financially and technically feasible to develop the product. So the feasibility study or the feasibility, you can say activity, that involves the analysis of the program, and collection of all the relevant information which relate to the product, like your different data items, different input to the system, the processing which would be required on those data, right? So the feasibility study, this determines whether it is feasible to develop that product or not. Feasibility study, we are having three kinds of feasibility: the technical feasibility, the economical feasibility, and the operational feasibility, right? Now, the next step is your requirement analysis, and here a term is missing, that is your and specification. So basically the requirement analysis and specification, this phase basically consists of two distinguished phases. So here one is the requirement gathering and analysis, and second one is the requirement specification. So here the main goal of your requirement gathering activity, this is to collect all the relevant information from the customer regarding the product that has to be developed. In order, you can say, to view, to clearly understand the customer requirements and whether it is having some incompleteness, some inconsistencies on those requirements. And the requirement specification activities, or analysis we have missed out. So the analysis activity, it starts, you can say, by collecting the relevant data regarding the product which has to be developed, and that those data has to be collected from the user and from the customer through different interviews, might be through different discussions. Next is your requirement specification. So here the customer in requirement, the customer requirement is identified during your, you can say, the requirement gathering and analysis activity. So the most important part here are, or rather you can say the most important components here are the functional requirement and non-functional requirements. And you can say the goal of implementation, right? So this specification deals with mostly these three activities. So the next step is our design. The next phase is our design phase. So here in this phase, design phase, here the requirements which are specified in your SRS document. SRS document is the software requirement specification document, which is basically generated during the requirement analysis and specification phase. So the SRS document is developed during that phase. And in your design phase, here the requirements which are being specified in the SRS document is this has been transformed and the suitable design is generated. So here during the design phase, the you can say the software architecture is derived from the SRS document. For the design, basically the two approaches we are having two traditional design approaches. One is the object-oriented approach, and other one is the traditional approach. Now, moving on to the next phase. Here we are having the implementation phase. This is basically called your coding and unit testing. So the main, you can say, purpose of this coding and unit testing phase of a software development, it is basically to translate the software design into the source code. So each component of the design is implemented as a program module, and at the end of the you can say the end product of this phase is to set of the program modules that has been individually tested, right? So next is the integration and system testing. So integration, like you have seen unit testing. In unit testing, what we are doing basically, so each phase we are dividing the software into several modules, and these modules are tested individually. During the integration testing, the modules, we are integrating some of the modules, might be 2 modules, 3 modules, depending upon the requirement. And then we are carrying out the testing. So during the integration testing, partially you can say integrated system is being tested. And finally is the system testing. So the system testing is after the entire system has been integrated, or we have developed a system, the entire system is being carried out. Here in integrated system testing, we are having 3 kinds of testing. One, that is the alpha testing. Second one is the beta testing, and third one is the acceptance testing. Alpha testing is basically performed by the development team. Beta testing is performed by the set of friendly customers, and acceptance testing is performed by the customer, or you can say the himself, or after the product delivery, in order to check whether it has met all the requirements or not. Now, the main goal of the system testing, it is to find out whether the developed system, it functions according to all the requirements that has been specified in the SRS document or not. And the last phase here is the maintenance phase. So maintenance of a software, this requires the, you can say, the much more effort as compared to any other phases. So many studies which has been carried out says, which has been carried out in the past, that says that a typical software product to its maintenance effort is roughly 40-60 ratio. So we are having basically 3 kind of maintenance: the corrective maintenance, the perfective maintenance, and the adaptive maintenance. So correcting here, this correcting errors that were not discovered during the product development phase, this is basically your corrective maintenance. Perfective maintenance, it's basically the improving the implementation of the system and enhancing the functional capabilities of the system, which are depending upon the customer requirements, right? And the adaptive maintenance is for putting the software to some to work in some new environment. So this is basic. For example, you are putting may be required to get a software work on some new computer platform, might be with some new operating system. So these are basically the 3 kind of maintenance activity. So this is all about the classical waterfall model.
Ma'am,
Yes.
how would you know we have to transition to the beta stage from the alpha stage?
When a single step, for that I have told you the phase entry and the phase exit criteria. This phase entry and exit criteria will enable you to find out whether you are this phase is completed and you should proceed on to the other stage. Like suppose if you are doing the coding, if you have done the coding for the entire software, that means that stage is complete and now you can proceed on to the next stage. Like if I consider the first phase, the feasibility study, you have checked out all the aspects like the operational aspect, economical aspect, technical aspects, and it suggests you that you can carry on the project or the software. So definitely that stage is completed and you can proceed on to the next phase.
Okay. Ma'am, do we have to? I mean, do we have to build the future updates? Like it's completely different from the first product what we tried to develop or something. Do we
Exactly.
have to consider it another alpha stage for that version, or
Another
like another alpha stage for that version?
alpha
Like
stage. I'm not getting you.
I mean, when we are testing alpha testing, beta testing, in the
Yes.
testing phase,
Yes.
If we try to launch something new, I mean newer update or version of an software, do we have to use the alpha test again or beta test again for that version?
No, alpha testing and beta testing basically is done for the entire system. If you are changing the entire system, that is required. But see, definitely if you are giving some updates, that means some newer versions you are getting through or something, testing is definitely required, definitely by some development team, some other users. See what happens basically when we are testing in some or in some simulated environments, all the problems or all the, you can say, bugs are not coming out. But when it is set on to the live environment, so there all the that is being used by the several customers, or right, might be several users. So there all the problems this have been generated, and that can be rectified. Do you have heard about your parents might be using when the Android was first launched? So several versions were coming out. Do you have go and ask them? They will be telling you when Android was first launched, the battery backup was it was consuming a large amount of you can say the power. The battery backup was very worse. Then several other problems were there initially when Android was launched. See, it was not like that. It has not been tested before launching. Definitely, it was tested. But when it is coming onto the live environment, several other bugs or several other errors, this were discovered, and this has to be taken care of. So simultaneously, you can find out several versions of or several updates of this Android came out. So when you are all of you are using mostly a smartphone, so when you are getting some updates, might be of some of your apps or might be of the OS, there this update contains bug fixes or this. So these are the features that has been rectified for the in this update or this one, this features has been rectified. Definitely, if you are launching something to the market, or if you are delivering something, testing is definitely so, but it depends on the product, or might be upon the organization, which testing strategies they are adopting. There are several testing. When in detail, see, today I'm giving you only an overview. When we'll be learning details about the testing, there are several testings. Okay. Any other queries till now? Any other queries? Okay, so there were some problems in the classical waterfall model, like if you have here, if there is a problem in, if you can see, okay, if there is a problem in during the testing, if it is find out there is a problem in some previous phase, so all the entire phase need to be revisited, or we can directly come on to that phase, rectify the error and come back. So this facility was not there in your classical waterfall models. So in classical waterfall model, it is being assumed that the no development error is being committed during the by the engineers during any of the life cycle phases. But in practical, that doesn't happen, right? Several errors might be designed. So this was the main drawback of your classical waterfall model. So this problem was overcome by the iterative waterfall model, where you can see there is a feedback path from each phase to the another phase, such that all the phase you can go back to that phase and you can rectify the error that has been generated in that phase. Next comes your prototyping model. So the risk factor is not being covered in this iterative waterfall model. So for that, next comes your prototyping model. So what happens in prototyping model, it is basically suggested that before carrying out the development of actual software, prototype need to be built. And this prototype is nothing but a toy implementation. So this prototype, what is being built, that exhibits some limited functional capabilities, might be having some low reliability and some, you can say, inefficient performance that is compared to the actual software. But it's basically a toy implementation. So we can give it to the user if the customer satisfied. So we can develop the original product. So, it is quite better to give this toy implementation to the customer for their satisfaction. If they are agree, then we are developing the final project. But there are some, you can see these are the phases. So this is requirement gathering. So after that, a quick design is being done, a prototyping is being built, that is given to the customer for their evaluation. They refine the documents. Again, we are following this. And when the customer is fully satisfied, then only we are approaching the design phase for the final design of the software, right? Here, first the design is being given, quick design is being done, a toy model is being developed. This is given to the customer for their evaluation. And when they are completely satisfied, we are proceeding on to the design phase. But here in prototyping model, you can say the cost requirement is much more as you are developing the prototyping. So that might be refining the requirements, but here the cost incurred is greater. So next comes your evolutionary model. In evolutionary model, it's basically sometimes called as your incremental model also. So here what happens, the software is broken down into several modules, or rather we can say the functional units. So which here can be incrementally constructed and delivered. So what does the development team? First develops the core modules of the system, as you can see in the picture. So this initial product or the skeleton, these are refined into some increasing level of capabilities by adding some new functionalities in some successive version. Even you can say in evolutionary version, this might be developed using the iterative waterfall model, right? So all this versions, this might be developed using this. You can say the iterative waterfall model. So here the successive versions are being made. These are delivered to the customer for their refinement, and ultimately the final product is being designed. The model that is mostly used is your spiral model that was proposed by Boehm in the year 1988. So here you can find out, let me move on to this. So this diagram, it shows the spiral model. It has many loops, you can see. So the exact number of loops is not basically fixed. So each loop of the spiral, this represents a phase of the software process. For example, you can say the innermost phase is the feasibility study. The next loop is the requirement specification. The next is the design, and so on. So here you can say this spiral model is much more flexible as compared to the other model. Here each phase is divided into 4 quadrants, right? Each phase you can see is divided into 4 quadrants. So here the objective of the you can say the first quadrant of the phase, and so here the first quadrant that you are finding out the first quadrant. So it identifies the objective of the phase and the alternative solution which is possible for the phase that is during the consideration. Now during the second quadrant, the alternative solutions, these are evaluated to select the best possible solution. Now here, so the first quadrant, now we are getting just a second. Okay. What happens in the next quadrant? In the next quadrant, for the, you can say, the chosen solution, the potential risks are identified, and these are basically dealt by developing, you can say, a product or developing an appropriate prototype. So a risk, you can say, is any adverse circumstances that might hamper the successful completion of a software product. So this are identified in this stage. And finally is the customer evaluation of that prototype. If the customer is satisfied, we are moving on to the next phase. So here in the first quadrant, so the objective of the phase is being identified, and basically it examines the risks which are being associated with that objectives, and the alternative solution is being proposed or what can be done. So in the second phase, the risk assessment and the risk reduction is done. So a detailed analysis is being carried out for the next phase, and the steps which has to be taken to reduce the risk has done. If required, a prototype is being developed. And in the third quadrant, it's basically the development and the validation. And the fourth quadrant basically reviews the results achieved so far with some customer and plan which phase will be the next iteration for the spiral. Now, spiral model is basically called a meta model, as it you can say assumes assumes all the models that we have discussed. So if I say, for example, a single loop or a single loop spiral, it basically represents the waterfall model. Spiral model also use the prototyping approach by first building, you can say, the prototype before the actual development. It is also the evolutionary approach as the iteration along with the spirals. This can be considered as the evolutionary level till, you can say, the complete system is being built. So this is all about the spiral model or the life cycle models. So these are the life cycle models. So nowadays in industry, basically the agile model is followed. All these models are the spiral model is mainly used, and after that the agile model, this is there. So any doubt till now or any queries? Let me go back to here. Okay. So do you have got a brief idea regarding the software engineering development?
Yes, ma'am.
So
Yes, ma'am.
after that,
Ma'am.
bolo? So after that, what we'll be reading through is, you'll see, it's basically a webinar, so we can't complete the entire. We'll be going through each phases of the software development in detail, the different techniques which are associated with it, and the testing, several testing techniques. Like first, we are having white box testing and black box testing. In black box testing, the code is not visible. we are just giving the input and checking out whether the output is proper or not. In white box testing, the code is visible to us, or that is basically, we can say, the structural testing, where we are testing the entire product. Then we are having your levels of testing, like your unit testing, integration testing, and system testing, that we have discussed a little bit. You are having the DFD, you are having the entity relationship diagram. You'll be having, I don't know your syllabus, whether you are having some UML diagrams or not, whether it's in your syllabus or not. So these are basically the aspects of the feasibility study. Then comes your requirement analysis specification. There you'll be developing the SRS document. Next comes your design phase. In design phase, the DFD, ERD, several UML diagrams, these are being developed. Next comes your coding phase. The code is being written. Then your testing phase. Different testing has to be adapted. And finally, we can say the implementation, rather we say the deployment and the final maintenance. These are the phases which you have to be going in detail. So that's all from me for today's webinar. So any queries or any questions you can ask. I don't know whether you are able to learn even something out of it or not. কি কিছু কি
Ma'am,
বোঝা গেছে?
ma'am, can you provide us with the file, the PowerPoint file which you are showing? It will be helpful for
PowerPoint
us to
file.
go
How
through.
do I provide it? Tell me, I can provide it
Ma'am,
to you.
you can give it in the group in
Okay.
which you are added.
Okay. Or could you help me with one thing? Just someone give your mail ID in the chat box. I'm mailing the file right now. Just some 1 or 2% can give me the mail ID. I can provide the file right now. Wait. So I have got some mail IDs. Wait, I'm giving the file. See, I'm giving it to some 3-4 persons. Rest, you share it in the group. So for Rajiv Ghosh. Okay, I have got the mail ID. Just a sec. PPT is attaching. Okay, I have got the mail ID. I will be sending you the file. You people please post it in the group or you send it to your friends. I will be sending you the PPTs. I have got the mail IDs. Okay, goodbye everyone. Thank you for joining.
Thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.
Okay, ma'am.
Okay, I'm ending the session.